Thank you very much. We had to send Joe a new link because YouTube went down a little bit here. And he has always been so kind to me, and we so love it. By the way, guys, please hit the like button here. The owner of a Super Bowl ring, Most Valuable Player Award, has seen it through. And by the way, it's great to see Washington relevant again. It's some of the best fans in the National Football League. You know, we had Doc Walker on a couple weeks ago, and he said, Sills, what do you make of the fan base? I go, it's great to see the energy back in D.C. again. And the guy who brought a lot of that energy is our friend. Here he is, former MVP, Joe Theismann. Joe, it's got to be great seeing that energy again, man, back in D.C. with this team.
It's unbelievable, Dan. So good to catch up with you again. I mean, it's just been a great shot in the arm in a very short period of time. I mean, you know, think back 10 weeks, you had basically a brand new football team, a brand new coaching staff, obviously brand new ownership, a very, you know, young, what we thought would be a terrific young quarterback. But, you know, when you play this game long enough, you say, well, maybe it takes some time for somebody to get up to speed. I think Cliff Kingsbury's done a masterful job. Nobody talks about the concepts of the offense as far as what he's been able to do to find a comfort level for Jayden. You know, you see it with now you see it with Sean Payton out in Denver. You see Bo starting to get a little more comfortable. Caleb still, you know, they fired the offensive coordinator in Chicago. You know, is it the coordinator? Is it the plays? Looks to me like he's running around for his life an awful lot. And of course now Drake May is starting to, you know, find his way a little bit. So this class is coming along really well, but there's no question Jayden stands at the top.
Joe, are you shocked with all the turnover? And what I mean by that is Brian Johnson, quarterback coach, the former Philly OC. Cliff Kingsbury comes in. You got Dan Quinn in there. You got a lot of new personnel, new scheme. I mean, for it, new owner, like you mentioned, for it to be hitting on all cylinders. And I can imagine you pumping the brakes a lot because you don't want to go downhill too much, get people on that wagon, and you fall off towards the end there, because how much of it is now pumping the brakes and telling people now, let's let this thing play out. It's 9 games into his career now. He's got a big one coming up on Thursday night, obviously for the lead in the NFC East. I mean, how much is it of that, Joe? And are you surprised with all the turnover?
Well, first of all, Dan, it's you know, for years I've talked about cautious optimism. I'm more optimistic than I am cautious about this football team. I am a bit surprised. I think everybody would have to be when you have so much newness, when you have so many people that are basically putting in, you know, fill in different pieces of the puzzle, from players to coaches to concepts to philosophies. That's all different. And that usually takes a little bit of time. But I will say this. I remember when Joe Gibbs took over our football team in 1981. We went to the we went 0-5, and then we went 8-3. And then we went to the Super Bowl with a very, very young, inexperienced, new coaching staff, new players. Some of us had been there, but never really in that system. And I have a little saying, if you don't know, you can't get scared. and that's basically what I think we see with Washington is, you know, they didn't know what it was going to look like. They hoped. Of course, everybody hopes that they want to see it go well. And the fans, especially, because they've been disappointed for so many years, you know, all the talk in the offseason, all the acquisitions, all the different players. And now you really have what really looks like a stable organization from the top to the bottom. And they're tough. They play tough football. They play resilient football. The defense complements the offense. The offense complements the defense, and the special teams complement both units. You know, you beat the Giants with 5 field goals. Well, no, 7 field goals. Yeah. You beat them. You know, and you had other games where, you know, you barely got by because of the kicking game. So it's every element. It's truly a football team in that the essence of the word, that acronym that goes TEAM, together everyone achieves more.
Joe, how important for you in moving the sticks and continuing to develop your game was Art Monk? And I kind of make the comparison of having Terry McLaurin for this young player here, because, man, you can make a comment that McLaurin, I mean, he is maybe the most underrated football player in the National Football League, because he's on pace right now for about 1,300 yards. I mean, he is something else to watch. And I love the way he runs routes. I love how he blocks in the run game. He kind of has that Monk factor about him that'll do whatever it takes to win a ball game. I mean, whatever they're doing. The Hogs ran the ball. He's in the blocking game. But how important was it for you to have a guy like that? And how important do you think you can kind of, talk a little bit about Jayden Daniels having Terry McLaurin? How important is all that?
You know what bothers me a little bit is this isn't the first year Terry's been Terry. Okay.
I know, man.
Terry's been scary Terry. But all we hear about is Tyreek Hill and Jaden Waddle and Jeffers. We hear all these other names, but you never hear Terry's name mentioned. I think part of that had to do because the football team didn't have success. He hasn't signed that mega contract where everybody talks about economics and money. Certainly deserves it. But what was interesting is just as Cliff has designed the offense to take shots with Terry, to give Terry a chance to make plays, we did the same thing with Art Monk. It was Joe Gibbs's genius. See, Art was out of Syracuse, was a running back. We made him a wide receiver when he came out, but he couldn't get away from bump and run. Dan, he would belly bump, he just couldn't get away. So Coach Gibbs figured, okay, I'm not going to fight it. I'm going to move him. So Art became our move guy. Figured it was harder to hit a moving target than it was to have somebody stand still and jam him. And he became the guy that I always was able to find. I liken Patrick Mahomes and Kelsey to what Art and I had. People would say, well, as a quarterback, you find the open guy. Truth of the matter is, the open guy, the receiver, finds a place to go for you. So it isn't just you searching out somebody in a hole. It's him finding a place. And when you think about being able to get the ball out of your hands and know that you're going to wind up in an area where it's going to be safe. Today everybody throws 50-50 balls. The concept of working to get open is a lost art in professional football. Nobody works to get open. Everybody knows, can't touch me after 5 yards. I'll just run a route, and then I'll do this. I'll do this. I'll turn to the referee. Just run the route and catch the football, will you? For crying out loud, stop griping as a receiver. You never see Terry do that. But Terry will get in somebody's face. He's not afraid to go after anybody. He's a terrific young man. He's a terrific football player, and he deserves a lot more accolades than he's getting. And if you just want to go by somebody's way he plays, how you want to recognize him, Terry's the guy.
Jalen Hurts, you think he's one of the elite quarterbacks in the NFL today?
I think Jalen had a tough year last year. Through injury, everything that happened with the Philadelphia Eagles last year, it would be tough to evaluate the position. Dan, you've heard me say this umpteen times. The quarterback position is the single most dependent position on the field. He didn't have a lot of help. AJ was down. You had Smith was down. At times you really didn't have a full complement for you in Philadelphia. They're playing much better. He's playing the kind of football that we've always seen him play. It always looks like to me, when he takes off and runs, it looks like he's moving in slow motion. I watch this and I go, somebody's going to catch him. Nobody catches him. It's amazing. I think he's having an excellent year this year. I think we have to let the year play out, because now we're getting down to where you're going to see division games. Things are going to heat up everywhere. I know, in the NFC East, it's going to be that way. Obviously, in the AFC North, it's going to be that way. So you're going to wind up with, teams playing one another that are familiar with one another. It's like you don't see a whole lot of pitchers pitch through the seventh inning anymore, because the rotation comes up a couple times. That's a little bit of what we see when we start playing division rivals, as the teams have. But I think he's certainly one of the guys that's playing, in the top 8 or 9 right now. No question.
Joe, I say this, and correct me if I'm wrong. I take your opinion so highly on this, but I don't think you can not win a Super Bowl from the pocket. If you don't have a guy who can win from the pocket, you can't win. And that includes Lamar. Now, he's showing more from the pocket this year than he ever has. And I think Todd Monken has done a great job with him at teaching him how to spread the ball. And I think that horse behind him, known as John Riggins, Derrick Henry, is helping him a lot back there. So, but Joe, I don't think you can have one of these dual threat guys. Look at Vic and Cam. I know Cam got to the game. Am I wrong when I say that? You have to win a Super Bowl from the pocket.
Judge Dan, I will present my case to you. There's a guy that comes to mind. Let me think. His initials are TB. He couldn't outrun the setting sun. Okay. It would take Tom Brady. It would take him a little while to outrun the setting sun. He found a lot of success from the pocket because he got the ball out of his hands in a timely fashion. And this is the thing. This is what I've noticed more about Lamar this year than in past years. He's continued to develop in the pocket because he's making quick decisions and getting the ball out of his hands. So he doesn't have to run around. But when he does, obviously, he's very difficult to deal with. Derrick Henry could not have gone any place else and been the complement that he is in Baltimore than he is right now. I mean, people talk about going to Dallas. It'd have been just like he was with the Titans. He'd have been that guy that they're going to give the ball 15, 20 times to. If he breaks one, great. If he doesn't, he's just going to pound and pound. But there's no threat besides him. I'm shocked that the Ravens have lost as many games as they have.
Yeah.
To be perfectly honest with you, I'm absolutely shocked. But I think if you want to play a long time in this league, you have to develop your game from the pocket and then let your athleticism take off. Jayden's doing it very, very well. Kyler Murray is doing it very, very well. We see, obviously, Lamar doing it very, very well. And then you look at the records of these teams. It gives you that other element where you don't have to necessarily run, but the teams have to be aware of the fact that you can and will. It's more like it's a threat than anything else. That doesn't have to happen, except maybe once or twice, And so to me, I think that you being in a pocket is essential for longevity. Being able to make plays puts you in a very precarious situation. I mean, Anthony Richardson, he has to learn to do it all.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a guy who really needs to learn to operate from a pocket. I mean, he's athletically, can run around a lot. Josh Allen has done a better job operating from the pocket and being very judicious when he runs. So you didn't see Josh's running game develop. You're looking at his in the pocket passing game develop. It's the same thing with Lamar.
Joe, when I look at Cliff Kingsbury and I look at the style of quarterback that he's had, Patrick Mahomes at Tech.
Yep.
I mean, Caleb Williams has that same kind of dual threat kind of being able to throw the ball and run when he was at Southern Cal. Kyle Murray, look at what they did. They won 11 ball games in the NFC West out there, and you had Pete Carroll, you had Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay out there. I mean, and it's the Cardinals and the Bidwells, so you know what I mean? I mean, that was pretty good. Now, this looks like the same kind of style. How important was that? And what a great hire that was by the organization in getting the right coordinator to fit the right skill set. I mean, that's something, Joe, that I think people don't take into account a lot, and that misses a lot. Just because a guy's a great coordinator in Chicago doesn't mean he's going to be a great coordinator anywhere else. How important was that?
100% right, Dan. You have to fit the system to the player. Okay, we're going to go after somebody that has mobility. Who has handled players like that before? And what kind of success have they had with players like that before? And the term I like to use is you need somebody who can move. They don't necessarily have to be able to run. I think that's to be able to move, to get yourself in a position to get the ball out of your hand. You don't see Patrick run much. Patrick runs very, very little when you really stop and look at it. But he moves extremely well. And I think that marrying up the system, the play caller, and the player are all three elements that have to come together. If you're missing one, you're going to miss the boat on all three eventually. So, yeah, I definitely think that, the hire of Cliff, the coaching they've done with Jayden, and, here's the other thing. I've had the opportunity to be around Jayden, and I really like the young man. I like his work ethic. I think he's a great leader for this football team. I think he has a insatiable appetite to grow and get better. He wants to win bad. He'll do everything he can. And then he proved his toughness after he got his ribs busted up a little bit. Then he comes back the next week against the Bears and plays terrific football. I mean, the thing about him is he's been very consistent. We're starting to see a little bit of a kink in the armor of Sam Darnold. Is Sam Darnold, he started like a house on fire. And now over the last couple of weeks, he's making decisions that remind you a little bit of the old Sam Darnold.
Jets.
That gets a little bit scary because, when you're in a position to put points on the board, paramount is your mind to protect points. If it's, you just don't throw it into places in the end. There's no room for anybody to go. It's a very crowded place, that end zone. I gotta be honest with you, very, very crowded. and more people with bad intentions are around the ball than people with good intentions normally. And so that, to me, this is a big week for Sam. Big week. What, his next game, what's it going to look like? I don't know if they're on a bye or not this week. I'm not sure, but what's this next game going to look like? Because he's sort of gotten into a little bit of that, rut that he got into in the Jets, and trying to get back into where he is. He's played terrific football, and Kevin's a great coordinator, great play caller. You look at Matt LaFleur up in Green Bay, Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota, Sean McVay with the Rams, Kyle Shanahan. These to me, and looking at the way Cliff runs this offense, there's my top 5 as far as offensive guys, and uniquely enough, the top 4 all were together.
Yeah, and Washington.
They really learned under Mike Shanahan. They were taught by the master, who was taught by Bill Walsh.
Absolutely. Couple last ones here for you here, Joe. And to go along with his character, what you were talking about, I'll give you a story. We had Herm on. We're having him on Friday, and he coached him, obviously, at Arizona State. Yep. Here's one of the coolest things I heard about the kid, and he made us all aware. And, that's why I picked preseason. People thought I was insane. I said, I think the Commanders are going to win the NFC East this year. Uh-huh. And people thought I was insane, but I was like, I just think this kid is special. Herm said that when he transferred to LSU, he walked into his office and he was in tears. And he said, Coach, he goes, I know you do. Because Herm was leaving, and he goes, I know you do. I want you to.
That's why he left.
And he goes like this. He wouldn't have left. No. And Herm goes, you knew he had character because he came in and he was so emotional about it because he had such an affection for his teammates that he didn't want to, but he wanted the coach to go. It was okay. And so he goes to LSU. And I think that speaks to the kid. And I think the journey has a lot to do with the guy's character and where he is right now.
I agree 100%. He didn't, because we talked, I asked him, why LSU? He said, really, because Herm was leaving. Everything else was fine, except the guy that brought him there was gone. And that's another thing, which is a topic for us at another point in time, Dan. But how hard can it be today to be a college coach, to have to recruit, sign players, and then watch them walk out the door in a year?
You got to re-recruit your guys every year that you recruited the last 3 years.
And then I look like, I don't know if we talked about it. The University of Tennessee is going to raise their ticket prices so they can pay players. We don't have, there is no amateur football anymore.
Oh no.
It's professional ball. It's professional sports in college. Forget about football. It's professional sports in college.
Hey,
chase the dollar.
Shedeur Sanders is driving a Rolls Royce around in Colorado.
Well, that could have been a gift. That could have been a gift from his dad too.
Yeah, well, hey, I'll tell you what, man. Throw the ball away, son. Okay. Yeah. Let me throw this one at you here about your defense. Boy, I'll tell you what, man. I knew Bobby Wagner was a good football player when he was in Seattle. But let me tell you what Kellen Moore said today about him. He goes, that guy's in charge. You know it. You see it. You know it. When he's there, that whole defense runs around him, and he is a catalyst in the middle. So how important was it for Dan Quinn to get someone like that? And obviously he has a tie-in with him up in Seattle. Him and with Gus Bradley, they won a Super Bowl together up there. Yep. But boy, he's going to Canton. He's such a great ball player. Have you been surprised? Probably not by his influence on that team.
I'm not surprised at all. And I believe that's part of the reason why Dan brought him in, because of the familiarity with the system. And I think that, Adam Peters deserves a lot of credit. When you have a puzzle with a lot of pieces, you have to find the right pieces that fit together. I think he, and working in concert with Dan, of course, Josh Harris and that group, figured out the players they wanted to put on this football team. You look at these guys. Yeah, more than half this football team was new to a Commander uniform when the season started. How quick can you get? That's why Bobby was so important and is so important. because he has the opportunity to teach others, which really creates stability, not for just 1 year, but going forward with this football team in the defenses. And then getting Lattimore. All of a sudden now you've added another corner. So you're looking at a football team that continues to improve, continues to play great defense. I mean, you lost Jonathan Allen, one of the guys up front, but you wouldn't know it by the way they come off the ball and as hard as this football team plays hard, Dan.
Oh yeah.
They play 60 minutes of hard football. And if you don't believe that, all you need to do is look at the 2024 Chicago Bear Washington Commander football game. They played 60 minutes, not 59 and 58 seconds. They played 60 minutes of football and they wound up finding a way to win.
Last one here for you, Joe. I look at last week's game against the Steelers for that Commander team, and I think that's a prime game for you to be prepared for a good football team coming up on Thursday, where you played, where you know what championship level football is going to look like. You had a great football team defensively for sure on that side of the ball. You're going to see another one here on Thursday. Yep. You had a quarterback who's kind of that dual threat guy too. It was back and forth. It was as physical as it gets. Joe, I've always said, when you're in games like that and you're at those high level games versus playing those other dog teams like the Giants right now, you're not getting anything out of that, but you're getting a ton of experience and knowing what championship caliber talent looks like at that level. How important was that game to prep for Thursday's game, especially with a young quarterback, knowing that he's got more to go on here with this game because it means the NFC East?
Well, he's got the experience now. And when we were under Coach Gibbs, basically the way we looked at things is we were going to play our standard of football, irrespective of who was on the other side of the ball. That's why you'll win games 42-10. That's why you'll win games 24-21. Because you have to play to a certain standard. They did that against the Pittsburgh Steelers. They know how good that defense is really something else.
It's great.
And Russ has done a great job. I think the one thing the Eagles do have is their two wide receivers in particular are a handful. They have been a handful, and they are a handful. And so that's a little bit of the difference you get than what you had in Pittsburgh. And Russ is making good decisions, getting the ball out of his hands. Jayden, runs a little bit more, possibly at times. But again, it's going to be a great contest on Thursday night. We're going into Philadelphia, and I know you've talked to Jaws often, so Ronnie and I don't talk this week. Just kidding. But no, it's I do believe that playing a game like that, people look at it two ways. Wow, it was a really tough game. Are they going to have anything left in the tank? Absolutely. Absolutely. When I played in Canada, we played 3 games in 10 days.
Wow.
So, to me, looking at, 2 games in 5 days, it ain't that big a deal. I mean, if you're in shape, if you're, ready to go, if you've gotten through the previous game in a relatively healthy way, then, it all boils down to preparation and play to your standard, not to someone else's. You don't go down a level. You don't want to go up a level. You want to be where you are. And that's what the Commanders are doing right now. They're establishing a level that they're going to play at. And whoever they go up against, irrespective, doesn't matter. We're going to play our game, period.
Joe, I got to tell you, man, I'm looking at you right now and I'm thinking, did any team suck in the NFC East when you played? And it was no. Hey, no. It was, and get this, Joe, there was the Skins defense was sick good. I mean, the Giants and you were going against Gang Green. Maybe the only team that wasn't good during that time were the Cowboys, because they were kind of winding it down out of the Danny White era, but they were still good with Ed and those guys, with Randy.
There was a period though, Dan, that they were still mighty darn good. I mean, when Danny White took over, when Roger left and Danny took over, that's what we beat in the NFC Championship game.
No, they went to 5 straight NFC title games.
That's what I'm saying. So yeah, I mean, it's and the Giants, look at what they were able to do. And then, of course, obviously the Eagles, the head-to-heads it was always sort of in the division. Who was going to beat up who was going to get an edge in the division. And
more Super Bowl teams, Joe, have come out of that division than any other division in football.
A statistic I did not know, but thank you very much, Professor Dan.
Hey, man, this is going to be great Thursday night. I can't wait. And by the way, one last one here. I want to sneak it in on you. Isn't it great to get the Washington fans back? I mean, Joe, I tell people, when you used to go into RFK and you used to see that stadium bouncing up and down, you used to go, that me, man? Or am I equilibrium off? What's going on here? The stadium would roll like rock and roll, and the noise in there was so intense.
It's only 55,000 people. That's all. It wasn't like some of these big ones today.
It seemed like 155,000.
Exactly. They made that much noise. Real quick, the game I remember most, obviously the Super Bowl winning is a terrific, but the game that stands out in my mind the most in my career was the NFC Championship game against the Cowboys, when we were winning that game at the end. And they brought in all these aluminum seats for people to sit in to increase the capacity. And at the end of the game, they were pounding their feet on those aluminum seats. I'm standing on the sideline, and literally the ground beneath my feet is shaking. That stays with me forever. That's the memory I have from professional football, is the way our fans are, the enthusiasm, the energy. And there's been generations that have not seen this. So now all of a sudden you've got the younger people getting a chance to experience something that their dad or their grandfather or grandmother or mom, they talked about when they went to the games. So it's, we basically are becoming a generational gap in Washington for the fans of Washington.
Man, I'm glad it's back, because
I
miss, yeah, I bet, man. I miss that franchise with being a winner all the time. I mean, when I was younger, I don't ever remember the Washington Redskins Commanders. I don't ever remember them sucking. I just now, I mean, new ownership, new future, new quarterback. I can't wait till Thursday night. Joe, thank you, my friend. I really appreciate you so much. You know that we've been friends such a long time. Thank you very much.
Always love visiting with you. Take care. Oh, by the way, Veterans Day was yesterday. Let's just not remember our veterans on one day a year. Let's honor them, thank them every day of our lives for giving us the chance for me and you to be able to do this, but to remember them every day.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Amen. We look forward to it. Thank you so much, Joe.
Thanks, Dan. Take care.
You got it. The great Joe Theismann. Isn't it great to see Washington football back? It's so great to see Washington football back again. That's such a great fan base, man.